To paraphrase Boys to Men, it could be the end of the road for those funny, punny one-liners that local and state agencies have added to road signs, possibly inspired by this week's episode, LA Story. Passed earlier this year and set to go into effect in 2026, the Federal Highway Administration has new rules about those displays. Over the years, the agency has flagged signs that could be confusing or distracting to drivers. And now, in rules issued in January 2024, it gives states 2 years to phase out signs that have obscure meanings or use pop culture references that could require drivers greater time to process. The agency said safety is the priority and states are, quote, expected to exercise good judgment. In a confusing and vague statement, and remember this is the federal government we're dealing with, so pretty much on par, the agency said the regulation does not include a ban on humor or pop culture references. Rather, it includes a recommendation to avoid the use of humor and pop culture references because it may distract drivers. Interpret that how you will. Quote, signs should be clear, simple, command attention and respect, and provide time for response. And I feel like as long as you are not tailgating or driving like a maniac, you will have time to respond. And if you are tailgating and you are driving like a maniac, maybe you need a funny sign to remind you to not do any of those things while you are driving. So these catchy messages began with the now famous click it or ticket, as has drive sober or get pulled over. But in the last several years, states have been using electronic billboards to ramp up their messages with a little more zip. For example, leading up to July 4th, drivers around the nation have seen messages such as only sparklers should be lit. Around Halloween, Hocus Pocus, Drive with Focus was featured on many Texas roads, and Hocus Pocus, of course, was the 1993 movie starring Sarah Jessica Parker, who played Sandy in this week's episode. And of course, around the holidays, we see the advice, visiting in-laws, slow down, get there late. Matt Bruning, press secretary for the Ohio Department of Transportation, gets asked if he is, quote, the guy who does the signs. And he finds this funny when they quote some that they remember. Quote, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get those safety messages through to people. Things that we already know. A 2016 study showed that humorous signs can be useful for safety reminders. 54% of drivers reported changing behavior after seeing specific messages on electronic signs on roadways. Did they hug the sign? Did the sign inspire someone to kiss the object of their affection? Did the person then get the sign cable TV? If this legislation stands, we may never know. Bruning describes a message about wearing seatbelts that went up a few years ago, a reference to the often quoted mispronunciation in a scene from A Christmas Story, a 1983 movie filmed mostly in Cleveland. Life is fragile, and we spelled it out fragile, Bruning said, and we thought, man, everyone's seen A Christmas Story. It has its own 24-hour marathon every year, especially in Ohio. Everyone will get that. Well, there are a lot of people who didn't understand. Unfortunately, they didn't know what we were trying to say. We got some confused phone calls and emails, so we won't use that one again. And I'll tell you what, I'd like to take a leg lamp to the dorks who did not understand that message. Over in New Jersey, they put up messages that read, hold on to your butts, in an effort to help prevent forest fires. And after New Jersey legalized recreational marijuana, a sign went up, we'll be blunt, don't drive high. And of course, as expected, the Highway Agency ordered New Jersey to take down those messages in 2022, but the state brought the messages back in November. And messages to drivers about safety are useful, says awesomely named Trip Sheely, an associate professor of civil engineering at Virginia Tech. He led a study in 2020 of how signs on highways can positively affect behavior. Sheely says signs that played with words or sought to be funny while still hitting a specific message made drivers think and therefore were effective. Be safe is not very effective, he says. What do you do with that, right? But get your head out of your apps is wordplay, humor, and very direct, right? Don't look at your phone while you're driving. Arizona, a state that has made the legislative rounds lately, might hold the key to preserving our funny signs. Governor Katie Hobbs and Arizona DOT both responded to the new rule, expressing frustration over the change. Quote, ADOT is disappointed in new federal guidelines discouraging the use of creative traffic safety messages on overhead highway signs. Since 2015, these messages have been well received by Arizonans, promoting safe driving on our roadways, and the innovative and humorous message signs have kickstarted conversations about traffic safety. Again, that's the goal, that's the purpose. And these signs have been incredibly popular with drivers and are an important tool for engaging the public in traffic safety awareness. We hope the federal government reconsiders and allows the fun and informative phrases to continue on Arizona highway message signs. So do we, Katie, so do we. Some of my favorites I found are this one from the Mississippi Department of Transportation, this one from the state of Mississippi. The Iowa Department of Transportation launched its own roadside safety signs program in 2013 as Message Mondays, and it renamed it in 2021 as Roadside Chat. And I love this one from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, Don't Drive Star-Spangled Hammered. And finally, this safety reminder from Utah reads, Buckle up, #YOLO. And for those who don't know, YOLO is you only live once. So go ahead and give the subscribe button a polite honk so you never miss a thing. We appreciate our viewers, our supporters, our listeners to the Real Relationships podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We thank you. As always, stay safe, especially on roadways. Give an electronic billboard a hug. We'll see you soon.